absolute chaos breaking out over at Twitter. Who could have thought? Let's go ahead and put this up there on the screen. We wanted to develop a whole just segment to this in particular, which is that Elon is currently saying to Twitter internally that Twitter could go bankrupt without more cash. Now, the context of that is important, but he held a basically surprise all-hands-on-deck meeting with the entire staff after he laid off about 7,500 earlier that day. Well, what happened? He said, quote, "This is my first email to the whole company. There's no way to sugarcoat this. Without significant subscription revenue, there is a good chance Twitter will not survive the upcoming economic downturn." Whenever somebody asked him about whether bankruptcy was on the table, he said, yes, it is certainly possible, including bankruptcy. And
I don't know that the economic downturn is the issue here, guys.
Well, I don't know if that's true, Krystal, because, you know, even normal advertising companies are already down by 40%. So on top of the chaos.
Obviously, like, advertisers absolutely fled Twitter. And, you know, already Twitter, you're right, was in kind of a precarious financial situation. But Elon has definitely exacerbated that and made it much more likely that any potential economic downturn is going to be possibly devastating.
Yeah, so right now, really what we're seeing is that Twitter's finances are a massive mess. He's had both in terms of cutting the staff, now having problems with his advertising revenue. We talked previously about saying that major advertisers were pausing all of their campaigns on the platform. He also, now we're about to get to, this just insanity going on with the rollout of his verification system. Let's go ahead and just roll this into this segment. Let's put the next one up there on the screen, which is that Twitter is now having to stop the rollout of its Twitter Blue, granting out blue check functions after impersonators were taken to the platform. Who could have possibly seen that coming? And this just underscores like how frankly badly thought out this all was. The idea behind Twitter Blue was to incur subscription revenue by charging for a checkmark. Okay, I've got no problem with that. But as we said, why was a checkmark invented in the first place? To ensure the reliability of the information on the platform. The person saying it is actually them. They were claiming that this would reduce spam on the platform, but then they didn't include any necessity to submit personal information.
Right, so they didn't require...
Like identity verification.
Right, it'd be one thing if, okay, now we've got a lot more people who are actually verified to be who they are, but then they just like totally skipped the whole part of the verifying who you are.
Yes.
And so it ended, I mean, it was funny, actually. It was quite amusing.
It was funny.
There were some real heroes out there who were like, you know, tweeting out to Ellie Lilly that insulin was free and impersonating all kinds of people. I mean, it was amusing, but it definitely degraded the quality of the platform for sure.
It's amusing for sure, because what was happening is that people were setting up fake accounts for like Glenn Greenwald, Ben Shapiro, Eli Lilly, many companies and others, and everybody had very much difficulty telling whether it was true, APAC, you know, others, and it caused a huge fury for people whose accounts were being impersonated. The most significant of them was actually Eli Lilly. So let's go ahead and put this up there on the screen. You know, the Eli Lilly stock dived significantly after a fake Twitter account tweeted, quote, "We are excited to announce that insulin is free tomorrow." They lost potentially billions in their market cap, and their stock was tanking based upon the tweet. They had to come out and clarify. They're like, no, we won't be giving out free insulin, which actually caused an entire news cycle around why exactly is insulin so expensive. I guess it's an entire different case. But the point is that verification itself was a complete disaster. And effectively, Elon has now had to reverse course, stopping Twitter Blue in the rollout of the checkmarks, although the people who already have the checkmarks will get to keep the checkmarks. And let's put this one on the screen. He now says, quote, "Rolling out soon, Twitter will enable organizations to identify which other Twitter accounts are actually associated with them." So he says, ultimately, Twitter will be the final arbiter as to who these organizations are, which really belies the entire question of why we're doing this in the first place. Look, I get the impetus. I've said here before. I think charging people is a great, great idea. This just is clearly not working, because the entire impetus, the value of the platform, was reliability of the information and elite discourse. There's a better way to charge this. I did a whole monologue on Twitter for Enterprise, and I think that's looking better by the day after how terribly this entire thing has gone for him so far.
It's just an absolute cluster.
Yeah.
And it's a cluster on a business perspective. By the way, I'm not shedding a tear for them. This part I think is glorious. But Eli Lilly still has not recovered their stock price since this happened.
Wow.
And by the way,
goodbye.
It wasn't just them.
Yeah.
It was other insulin makers.
Yes, that's right.
Also saw their stock price and their overall valuation like plummet with this fake tweet that went out. So, I mean, obviously I delayed in that particular example, but it's just complete chaos. None of it was thought through whatsoever. So from a business perspective, clearly a disaster. And then, you know, the whole supposed like, oh, I'm doing this not for the money, but for the free speech. Like, obviously that's not the case. That's like really clearly not the end goal of the decisions that are being made right now. With regards to whether Twitter declares bankruptcy or not without more cash, it's like, dude, you're a billionaire. If you want to put more cash in, if this is like your thing, and you're all in, and you don't
sold stock. He had to.
Oh, did he
sell like $3.5 billion in stock in order to pump the company to keep it running, which really sucks.
His thing coming in was like, I don't care about making money off of this. Is like a public good, whatever. Like, okay, well, if you want to make it a public good and actually do a decent job with this, that is not what's happening.
The real danger is that it's actually putting Tesla stock in danger because he has to sell so much of his stock on the open market for cash in order to save.
And now
Twitter.
should be a great moment for Tesla because I was actually just reading about how sales of electric vehicles doubled in like the first, quarter of this year or whatever. I mean, it's a huge, and it's going right now is sort of the pivot point where, and he gets a lot of credit for this. He really deserves a lot of credit for this, where electric vehicles are going from like niche early adopters in California to a much more mainstream market, especially some of the more affordable, like the Nissan Leaf, some of the more affordable models where, this is, I guess, the silver lining of high gas prices. Not that I'm cheering for that, but a lot of people are looking at this plus the government incentives and saying, oh, this actually works out for me economically to lean into electric vehicles. So like I said, it should be a great moment for Tesla. I think Tesla is a very important company in terms of, what I believe in dealing with the climate crisis and moving towards electrification. And instead he's like over here, trolling senators and making chaotic decisions all over the place and then rolling them back in the next day. One other thing I wanted to point out this morning before I forget is, amidst the advertiser exodus and the cash crunch and all of these things, we just learned from CNBC that apparently SpaceX, one of Elon's other companies, just made a gigantic ad buy on the platform. So a little bit of self-dealing there to help prop up Twitter, which is clearly not doing so well.
That's what's going to have to happen at this point. I mean, look, there's two ways to look at this. This is a total shit show. Elon, doing what he always does, which is running companies, very chaotically, eventually may actually settle upon a good business model. It's possible in a year from now we will look back and be like, wow, he actually turned the company around. He did it with Tesla and he did it with SpaceX. So I'm not going to count him out just yet, but things have not gone as well. And the stakes are high. You have the economy against you. Basically also, the sources of his real wealth, which is Tesla and others, should not suffer as a result of these acquisitions. So Tesla shareholders, the board there, also of SpaceX, may pressure him to return to that. Can he really run three companies all at the same time? I have no absolute idea. I'm not willing to bet against Twitter just yet because, on the one hand, the thing failed spectacularly and they just pulled it, right? Then they were like, fine, we're going to redo it. But he does seem so very committed to this verification idea that to me almost seems ideological in a belief and not fully backed up, conceptually as to what a really good product is. But eventually, I think he should pivot towards that enterprise, like I said, and actually settle upon some real, actual business recurring revenue that would work and keep the platform reliable and useful in the long run.
Yeah.
I don't see another way out yet.
Hey guys, ready or not, 2024 is fully upon us now, and Saagar and I have been brainstorming ways that we can really up our game for this critical election.
Yeah, we rely on our premium subs to expand our coverage, to add staff, to upgrade the studio. We just want to give you the best independent coverage of this election, which is possible. So if you can help us out, become a premium subscriber today, breakingpoints.com, or the link is down here in the description video. It really means the world to us, and if you like what we're all about, this is the best possible way to keep us 100% independent, working only for you.